out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube, we're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And now for today's topic. All right, so I got on the phone Bryce Hamilton with Ameripro, and he's AKA the Pest Pimp. So, hey, Bryce, welcome to the podcast.
Franklin, glad to be here, man. Yes, Pest Pimp. I coined that phrase long ago, and it stuck.
I don't think I want to know how you really got that phrase coined. I got mine, the Pest Geek, but everybody called me the Bug Guy. But anyway, the Pest Pimp, that one's a new one on me. All right, so yeah, let's go.
I was young and cocky, man. Young and cocky, and I came up with it. It stuck.
Yeah, I know, right? So let me ask you this: you are in what city are you in, by the way?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, you're in Jacksonville. Okay, so you're still up north. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm down in Miami. So it's quite a ways between you and I in the long state of Florida. But we're going to be discussing, so everybody knows, but basically WDO inspections, and we're going to be covering that on the podcast. And so we talked back and forth about what you're doing, and you kind of got a similar background to me, where you started out in the industry in lawn and ornamental in L&O, and I did that. I did that for I think it was almost 9 years, where that's exclusively what I did was L&O. So you got started back in 2003?
I did. I started in 2003 with a landscape company that did maintenance and installs and treatments. I worked my way up to a foreman within about 6 months, because the guys that were ahead of me in the crew either lost their driver's license from a DUI, or the owner found out they didn't have one anymore. It was suspended. So by proxy, I was 18 years old and became a foreman, and I was running a lawnmower, and I was applying herbicides and fungicides. I had no real training. I didn't know what PPE was. I just read the labels as far as the mix rate,
right,
and did what the boss said, and that's how I got my career going in pest control and L&O.
Wow. Yeah, it was similar to me, man. I got thrown in a truck, and I was told, you mix these, 7 products, you do a tank mix, and back then it was organophosphates, purely. And I don't know how I survived without any PPE training or, knowing what I was doing, just basically mixing, 5 different products in the tank mix and hosing down a house. That was my initial training, which is one of the reasons why I did this podcast in the beginning, because I find that there's still people to this day doing that. And, and it's a shame, because this is a great industry, and it gets a black eye because of a lot of that stuff. But so you got into L&O in 2006, and tell me what happened between there and now, where you're doing mostly termite or WDO inspections. What happened between there?
Okay, I'll tell you. So it was 2003 was when I started in the landscape, and I was applying illegally and not knowing any better.
Right.
And then in 2006, a friend of mine got me an interview with an actual license company, a smaller company here in Jacksonville.
Right.
And so I was, at that point in 2006, I was 21. And I had a great mentor. She sent me to all the schooling that I could possibly have gone to, online training, local training. If there was a door open for a training or a learning opportunity,
right,
I was there, and it was understood. And it's because she pushed me for that. So
right.
that my mentor, her name was Fran. She passed away tragically about 4 or 5 years ago. She had a tragic accident, and so then I lost my mentor, so that was tough. But she trained me right. I had 9 months training on GHP and WDO inspections before I was able to be cut loose. I did a lot of cross training. So that's when I tell people I had 9 months of paid training, because I had a great boss, a great leader. And I realized it was my calling. I got certified at 25 years old and never looked back. Right.
So that's pretty awesome. So you were in since 2009, and then you became a licensed certified operator. For people who don't understand Florida, Florida is you're an ID card holder or you're a certified operator. There's nothing pretty much in between, and everything is a different category to get certified in per category. So you went on, and now when did you get launched and went solo? Or when did you go on your own?
January of this year, actually. I worked for that smaller company, and I got a lot of, that's where I learned most of my critical training, and a lot of my hands-on training and my picking up knowledge and skills happened at the smaller company. And I kind of reached my maximum potential there. So I went to a very large corporate company here in Jacksonville, big hitter up here. And I got to learn a lot about the corporate side and true route management, 17, 18 stops a day, and running production. And I got to I feel like I had the right setup through a set of a close group of core mentors, that kind of helped steer me along.
Right.
And learning what I learned from the small business for so many years, and then the corporate side of pest control for over 3 years. So that was until January of 2019. That's when I was fortunate enough to start this company with the partnership.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you hit something on the head. A lot of people, most everybody that comes out of pest control usually comes out of a large brand where they worked for several years, and they were a tech, and whether they got disgruntled or whether the company got bought out that they were working for and then merged, because that's been going on. Consolidation in the industry has been rampant for a decade now.
Especially as of late, the last 10 years has been this rapid growth is via acquisition. Yeah,
the acquisition. So a lot of guys get displaced. They don't fit into the new culture, and they go and start up. And one of the things that I did, I didn't come from corporate pest control. I actually didn't know anything about pest control when I got in, but I did spend 20 years of my life in corporate. And there are things that I learned that I didn't like. And things that I learned that it was valuable to me to running a company and growing it. And I think you got to learn to take the good with the bad. Everything about corporate isn't bad. It's just the size that sometimes it's just a giant behemoth that, unfortunately, you're a small spoke in a giant wheel, and that's just a reality. So a lot of guys are disgruntled about that, but it is what it is. I think you can learn if you're there. I encourage you, learn as much as you can, because if you're going to start up, that's going to be useful to you later, especially if you can get into branch management, or if you can get into even service manager at some of these branches. You'll learn about management.
Oh yeah,
you'll
absolutely.
learn. Yeah, so there's a huge advantage to that, and then that you can apply later. So now you're on your own, and you're doing. What is the main business that you do right now? What is the main?
Here in North Florida, I provide pest control and termite services. I didn't want to take the leap into L&O just starting out.
Right.
So my main focus was Centricon, conventional treatments,
right,
and general household pest control. So I signed up with the software. I tried to go all out. I've got professional software, and I've got a database of customers due to being in a partnership with the home inspection company. So I've got a long list of leads that I've been pursuing, as well as referrals and word of mouth, and that's how I've been able to grow in these last 7 months.
Right. So yeah. And one of the things that because I do a lot of people, because that's been my L&O was my specialty forever. I mean, we went from, just give you an idea, we went from 95% L&O. Okay. From 2009 to 2014.
to now we're 60% GHP, 40% LNO. And one of the hardest things to do is it takes forever to train a guy on LNO, because you've got, especially if you've got here in South Florida where it's mostly ornamentals, and there's a home with 100 ornamentals and the guy can't tell the difference even 9 months in, if this is a deficiency or if this is an actual disease. And it's very, very tough to train, and especially getting people to want to work outside.
Sure.
When you've got 104 degree temp with 100% humidity, about the only thing I could probably compare it to is digging a trench. And you don't have people lining up for that job either. So GHP, a lot easier to do, a lot easier to train. LNO, if you're going to be a good LNO company, very, very tough, because you got to learn 5 things versus one thing. You got to learn the ID on the plant. You got to learn the disease on the plant. You got to learn the deficiency on the plant. You got to learn the pest on the plant. And then you have a host of pests you got to learn and a host of diseases. And it's tough. It is really. So the guys that are doing LNO and are doing it right, the customers really sometimes don't understand. A large company comes around and says, hey, we'll do it for half price. And they dump you thinking, and all of a sudden 6 months later, that garden is destroyed because they have no clue what they're doing. And a good LNO company doesn't come cheap. I tell people, we sell Bentleys and Rolexes, okay, to people who want and can afford to buy Bentleys and Rolexes. Nobody needs a super premium lawn, but if you want it, it is a luxury ticket item. So, yeah, man, if you can make it you can make it a whole lot easier with termite and GHP than LNO. With a whole lot less headaches. So I'm with you, brother.
Kidding.
Yeah, a whole lot less headaches.
Pulling that hose.
I've
pulled plenty of hose treating lawns, and matter of fact, at either company that I've worked at before, coming out to this one, I was fortunate enough to be able, if my route was completed, then I had to jump in the lawn truck, not really by force, but by choice, so that I could continue to run production. Right. But you mentioned, being conditioned and being in the heat, and it does take a special person.
Oh yeah.
I'll never get used to it. People look at me during the day I'm running my route, like, they're like, oh my God, are you going to die? Like, are you going to make it? I'm like, hey, look, no, I start sweating from the moment I wake up until the day is done. But I'll never get used to it. But you do what it takes, man. And when it's your passion, it's your passion, whether, no matter what you're doing for a living.
Yeah.
So, and I forgot to mention that, probably I realized one of my big passions in the industry was WDO inspections, like being, almost like a detective.
Right. And you have to be,
I'm proud to say that I've done over 3,000 inspections, with 0 claims. I'm not saying I've never missed anything, but I've just been fortunate enough to be able to make it right and make sure that the customer walked away and they didn't have a bad taste in their mouth. And that's what it's all about. And even, the Department of Agriculture will tell you that that, bend over backwards, do what it takes to make the customer happy so that we don't get involved.
Right.
And
absolutely.
There's been a couple of instances where, I wouldn't say that I outright missed anything. It was more so report writing. That's what gets a lot of people in trouble with WDOs is sometimes, of course, you miss things that are blatant. They seem to be blatantly obvious, but you just miss them. Of course, that's going to happen from time to time, but report writing is where you get really caught up and can get in big trouble.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that, because there's a lot of guys out there who are listening to this, and a lot of people who are homeowners or property owners or property managers that don't understand this. I mean, they think I get calls all the time and says, do you do free inspections? We don't do inspections at all because we're not into the termite business. That's not our thing. But I get it all the time, people wanting a free inspection. And I see some people charge for inspections. Other people don't charge for inspections. I hear stories of a guy going in for 45 minutes to do an inspection. Other guys are saying, no, you got to be in there a minimum of 2 hours to 4 hours, depending on the size of the house, to do a real inspection. So let's talk about WDO inspection. And you mentioned the paperwork, and it is a lot of the price you pay is for a lot of paperwork. I understand that the time that it takes to do all that and report it, because if you find it in Florida, it is reportable. I'm not sure about any other state, so I'm pleading complete ignorance here on WDO, because I really don't know it. So talk to me about that process of a WDO inspection, and what does it take to really do it, and what should people be looking for?
What does it take to really do it, and what should people be looking for? When you say people, are you talking about the client or the inspector?
I'm talking about the actual inspector who's going to go out, and then, I guess our audience can figure out, that this, how much work this is going to be, and we can talk about that. So let's talk about the technical part of what it actually takes to get this done.
What it actually takes to get it done. Well, one of the things I think is that made me such a good inspector and report writer was that for 3 months, like the lady that I mentioned was my mentor until tragically she passed away. For 3 months, I had to shadow her, and I actually wrote all of her reports. I took her notes right there alongside her, of course, but she got me accustomed to following a formula. I think that's one of the most important things for a WDO inspector, no matter whether you're just starting or you've been doing it forever, is that you have to establish your formula for doing it, or your schedule, and you got to stick to that every time. So you need structure.
Right.
To me, most importantly, you need a structure as to the steps that you're going to take and the order you're going to take them to complete that inspection. So in order to perform them, you either have to be a certified operator in WDO or in termite. And if you're not a certified operator, you have to be an ID card holder that was trained by a certified operator and signed off on by a certified operator to perform the inspection.
Gotcha. Yeah. So now we talk about standard operating procedures. I mean, a lot of guys, are not trained on SOPs. They're trained on spraying, or they're trained, and then they start getting into other things and, installing bait systems or trenching. But the actual inspection and having a standard operating procedure, I always talk about, the 5 Ps, the people, the protocol, the policy, procedures, and then lastly, the product. Everybody wants to talk about product first. Mm-hmm. I'm always into those things because it was drilled into me, being in corporate. That's how you get, a good product output is those 5 things. So let's talk about what is the technician in those SOPs on the standard operating procedures. What is a technician?
It depends on the.
Go ahead. Yeah. What is he looking for initially, or what is, what are the things? Let's talk about, most of these guys know what they're looking for. We're looking for termite damage or termites. Let's talk about the things that people miss the most. What are the most common things you see that you go in after another company has been there or done something, and what do the people miss the most? What is the most common thing?
Okay, I can give you a few examples. In particular, on the exterior, things that get commonly missed, it would be joints and seams where your 2 pieces of fascia come together, like at the front corner of a structure.
Right.
And then visual things. So the way the way 482 is written is that when it comes to WDOs, if you can see some particular damage from the ground, even though you can't reach it or get to it, you are still to report it because you see it, right? That would be most commonly chimneys. Chimneys all the time. I've gotten complaints that someone missed a bunch of wood decay on a chimney, and it'll end up being 2 or 3 sides. It might be the back side, and that's when it comes down to communication. Also, with if you're fortunate enough to be there with the home inspector, then we'll play off of each other and make sure that both of us are delivering a proper report to this client. And your report writing has to be on point too. But going on the exterior, I think the biggest thing would be chimneys, and then corner fascia, corner soffits. Even if it doesn't look decayed, the first thing when I train new guys is that you always probe corners, right? Because that's where moisture is going to gather. Anywhere there's a joint or a seam, it's where the moisture is going to wick in. So that's the outside. For inside, I think the most commonly overlooked thing would be exit holes. They can be so hard to find.
Okay.
You might not have any damage on a windowsill or the baseboard down below it, and you open up those plantation shutters or you move around the blinds and you get to looking in the window sash, and then sure enough, you end up finding exit holes. They're so small. They can be 1/8 of an inch or a little bit bigger, and they might have a round. You just never know what they're going to look like. So inside is exit holes. I think the biggest thing in attics is from either lazy inspectors or inspectors that just don't feel like navigating their way through an attic to find wood decay, because let's face it, it's 150 degrees up there in the summer, right?
Right.
The common thing to do as far as being not being a great inspector would be to get into the attic, do a visual just immediately around the opening, and then write the rest of the attic off, because you were able to claim that the AC plenum was blocking your passage, or the vaulted ceiling was blocking your passage. Meanwhile, you go to the other side of the house and there's an additional attic access, which gives you access to the entire attic. So you have someone like me that goes in and tries to fully check this and deliver the best report that I can, and end up finding these things that may have been previously missed. So that's the attic, right? The thing what gets you in trouble in the attic is not inspecting it,
right,
because it's too hot or you don't feel like it. And then crawl spaces, that's a nightmare. I'll tell you one thing I've heard over and over and over in my training is one of the most commonly missed areas of damage, no matter what the organism is in the crawl space, is immediately around the access, right? So you have a guy like me which it doesn't matter. Like I said, I was trained by a woman. I thought I was claustrophobic until I got into this industry. You're just so focused on getting in there,
right,
that you forget to look right above your head as soon as you go in. So that is not just me saying that. There's plenty of industry professionals and experts that will tell you that crawl space damage gets missed all the time at the access.
Right, the entry point. Let's go back real quick to something, because you like I said, I'm talking to maybe I'm the typical homeowner. I don't know anything about what I'm looking for, and you mentioned the corners and the rot in the corners. When we're talking about WDO, are we talking exclusively termite, or are we talking about other organism that would be causing the rotting, or what's going on there?
So in the state of Florida, which I wouldn't say that no two states are the same, but the wood destroying organisms that we recognize in this state are wood decaying fungi.
Okay.
Which it'd be called wood decay damage, but the fungi is what causes the wood to decay, right? I'm not going to talk your head off. I'm just going to tell you the WDO. You got wood decay fungi, powder post beetles, subterranean termites, dry wood termites, damp wood termites, and old house borers, which is another beetle.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're not just we're thinking, I want an inspection for termites, but you're actually inspecting for all these other things too that are what is known as a reportable WDO.
If you're doing that inspection for the purpose of a real estate transaction or a refinance, you are legally obligated to inspect for each and every WDO, not just termites.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Okay, so that's something that, and something I was looking at, but I didn't fully understand it, and I'm sure a lot of people don't that are listening. So you're looking for inside, and then you're looking at that attic, man. If you got an inspection programmed at 2:00 in the afternoon, in crawling into an attic in Miami at 140 degrees in there.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I mean, how long can a guy be in there before he dehydrates, and you have to send, an emergency vehicle to get him out and extract him? That's another thing. I mean, customer says, I want it at 4 p.m. because that's the only time I have. Is there a better? I mean, I would say if a customer really wants something, I would really want to book it, at 6 a.m. before the sun has come up when it's cooled all night.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to crawl. I mean, I've done crawl-ins for different things in a crawl space, in an attic and in a crawl space, and I would rather crawl in a crawl space sometimes, although that's nasty here. than to be in an attic, because you can literally, dehydrate up there in just, a little bit of time. So.
Oh yeah. I've got a trick question on, an exam that I've written for guys that I train, and it says on there that I try to trick these guys after the course is over, and because I teach people, I perform home or WDO inspection training.
Okay.
And I've got a trick question on there about the attic space, and I put on there that the Florida Department of Agriculture states in Chapter 482 that if the attic temperature is in excess of 140 degrees, it can be excluded from the inspection, whether accessible or not. That's a trick question.
Right.
The state of Florida doesn't care how hot the attic is. That's on you to figure out how you're going to inspect it.
Right.
So, but there are guys, believe me, I've heard stories that attics have been written off due to extreme heat.
Right.
But the way that I train guys is that you can only handle so much. You stay hydrated throughout the day. And if it takes you, nobody wants to do this, by the way, but if it takes you 3 times to complete that attic inspection, you have to do it. So another little trick is that, let's say you have an attic access in the garage, and then you have an attic access in the master bedroom closet.
Right.
Let's say that master bedroom's on the complete other side. That's why I like to carry 2 ladders in case the garage doesn't have a pull down. You set one up in the garage, you set one up in the master, you make your lap, you perform your inspection, and then you go out from the opposite side that you went in. If that's an option, which to me, that's a luxury, to have to start in the garage,
right,
and complete that inspection and go all the way back around to the garage it just takes more time. It takes more out of you.
Right.
But yeah, the way the state looks at it, doesn't matter if you have to get in the attic 5 different times and take breaks because of dehydration and extreme heat. That's what you have to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I've been in there where, people want us to crawl in. We're hunting down whatever, a mouse or something else that, we're looking for, and trying to figure out, where we have a beehive and man, it's in the corner of that, roof, and how are we going to be able, if we can get it or not? And yeah, it's miserable up there, man. I mean, it is. I mean, we don't do it anymore. We just don't do it because of the liability of getting a guy in an attic for no reason, unless it's totally justified. We don't do it, but I get it. I mean, I see it. I've had to been in crawl spaces where we're trying to figure out, how this giant rat keeps getting in, and everything is sealed. And, there's sewage down there, there's broken bottles, there's,
there certainly can be.
Man,
I'll tell you, with your, going in crawl spaces and speaking on sewage, is that, once again, I'm going to talk about safety and PPE, is that, you really need to be wearing a charcoal filtered respirator when you're going underneath structures.
Yeah.
And, the only downside to that, you mentioned sewage, is that if you're wearing a proper respirator that's functioning like it should be, you can literally crawl all the way up to or even into that sewage because you can't smell it.
Right.
Right? You don't know it's there, but however, I will say that 482 will allow you to exclude a crawl space or certain portions of a crawl space due to that fact. If there's sewage, if there's something down there that poses a threat to your safety or your well-being, like it could be a vermin, it could be snakes, it could be biting arthropods like fleas.
Right.
They will let you exclude crawl spaces for those types of things. You're not supposed to jeopardize your well-being just to get the inspection done.
Right. Right. Okay. So yeah. So yeah. All those things. I mean, and that's another one in Miami right now in summer. I mean, I'm not going into a crawl space because of all those issues. I'm wearing my knee pads. I'm wearing a bump pad. I'm wearing a respirator. Mm-hmm. You got sweat in your eyes, and I'm wearing a Tyvek suit. I mean, there's no way I'm crawling around in a crawl space without any of that, because I'm not taking a chance on my health or any of my people.
Sure. I got a question. Would you say that you go in a Tyvek suit directly over your uniform, or would you prefer to wear that Tyvek over a traditional crawl suit?
Well, I haven't done it because I've only done it actually once where I had to do it, and we never did it again.
Okay.
But I you know, we were doing an inspection for a guy who kept having these rodent problems, and we're trying to figure it out and where we can seal these big holes that were going under. And we did that service once, and we never crawled in to look for anything. Like, you know, some people are like, oh, I think something died down there. We're going to have a funeral service if it's something died down there. Because I'm not going in there to get it for you. Especially if it's an animal or something that died in a crawl space. And we used to have people call us for all that. And when we first started, you know, you're young, you're dumb and stupid. So
jumping all over it.
Yeah. So you're doing a lot of things that you should not be doing. And I'm one of those guys that I'll read to death before I do anything, but still, I wore my uniform, my jeans, my shirt. I'm wearing a Tyvek suit. I've got a hat on. I'm not getting a nail in my head. I've got, nope. I've got, my knee pads on. I've got my headlight, flashlight. I got my side flashlight. And I'm going in there, and then you got to crawl in a crawl space. And then, I know I've done enough. I worked in homes that I understand what these things can happen because I've been in construction and all that. So I can look at a pipe and say, there's a drip there. Chances are there's sewage underneath. We can spot that from knowing it and looking, but you're right. You got a respirator on. You can't tell. And I see guys all the time going into crawl spaces. No PPE, no respirator, nothing. They're just crawling under there. Terrible. And I'm like, dude, you're begging for it. To get. Yeah,
you are.
And I'll say, I have customers that send they send their what do you call it? A handyman. And I see handyman doing this all the time. And I'm like, dude, I see a guy says, you got to wear this, and that to do a repair down there, and with nothing, no PPE. I mean, it happens constantly in other industries besides pest control.
Sure it does.
Yeah, so that's a constant thing that we try to warn people about, but some people are just not going to listen.
No, and two points to that, and then we can move on to the next subject.
Yeah.
But I would tell I'll tell anyone that performs inspections is that if you're wearing Tyvek all the time, number one, it's not cost effective.
Right.
Because those things are expensive.
Right.
Over time, that cost adds up, and then they don't breathe. Right. It's so Tyvek to me are so uncomfortable that I'd rather get a crawl suit, and I've got one now that's got 3 or 4 patches on it. It looks like it's been through heck and back, right? But it has paid for itself 10 times over. And talking about PPE and the importance of especially a respirator is that I worked alongside a home inspector here in Jacksonville for years. And, he was in high demand, a great home inspector, older gentleman that was a builder and, your typical home inspector, I guess. And he ended up getting pulmonary fibrosis. It's a lung condition.
Right.
And he went to the Mayo Clinic. He did this, he did that. He refused to go on the transplant list because it was going to drastically alter his life and his quality of life. He felt like it would have been compromised. And he came down with pulmonary fibrosis from all the years of doing crawl space and attic inspections with no PPE, particularly no respirator.
Right.
So it's very important. Long term, it will catch up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and look, I dealing with homeowners, and people, I guess everybody's got a different business model. I'm not one to criticize a business model. If you can make it work and you can do a free inspection and be profitable and then get the work, I get it. But when you have to do all of these and all these costs are in place where you got to wear all this, and it takes time. Time is money. We understand it. And a guy is in there for 2 to 3 hours doing an inspection. I got people who want a free inspection all the time and they don't understand. Hey, well, how long was your last guy in there? He was here 45 minutes. I said, how is he, able to get all this done in 45 minutes when you've got all this to go through? You got all this report to write. I mean, how do you do it? I mean, it just not, I don't think it's possible to really get something of that quality done, in 45 minutes.
I totally agree. The one big saying is that how long does a WDO take? I get that question all the time. And the answer is that it takes as long as it takes.
Right.
I think a pretty good like in my experience, I think, probably a good time frame or a good amount of time spent just on site performing the inspection and taking pictures and taking your notes would be anywhere between an hour and a half and 3 hours.
Right.
And I've had them take, half a day here in Jacksonville. There's historic homes. They could be 2 stories with a basement and a crawl space. It might have cedar shake siding. Like, there's so many different factors that go into it. So the answer to how long does a proper inspection take? The answer is however long it takes. Right. And when you talked about doing the inspection for next to nothing as far as a fee is concerned and not investing your time, there's, plenty of salesmen in this industry that call themselves WDO inspectors.
Right.
And that's why they can do them for next to nothing, is because they're working on commission. They're going out not to perform a valuable service, but to offer a service,
right.
To get recurring revenue after closing. Right. And sure, I do the same thing as far as I offer solutions is how I like to put it, but I'm very proud of the WDO inspection that I perform. I've got a great reputation doing it. And I, ultimately have, since day one, I've always looked at it as, providing a valuable service. This person's fixing to, take out a loan, a 15, a 30-year loan on this house, and it's the biggest investment they'll ever make. I'm proud to do their inspection. Right. Like, very proud of it. So yeah, I charge a premium, and, I deliver a fine report with photos and, everything you could ask for. Right. And I get paid for it. Right. But that's how, where you're running into guys that are doing 30-minute WDOs, most often it's because there's a lack of training. That company hasn't been hemmed up yet with a lawsuit, or it's just a salesman. Right. And it happens. It happens all across the state and the country. And, I hate it for the sake of the customer, because they're not properly informed when they're walking into closing. Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I always, I've had these customers ask me, and I usually try to guide them. I say, listen, I can recommend you to a couple of guys. I don't do it, but I can, I got a couple of guys that I know that I can recommend. And they're like, but I want a free inspection. And I'm like, listen, you're buying down here in Miami, the cheapest house you can buy right now, which is like a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or 2-bedroom, 2 baths, 1,700, 1,500 square foot home. It's minimum of $350,000.
Oh, wow.
You're going into a brand new home in a HOA cookie cutter community, and you're going to start out at $500,000. And here you are buying a $500,000 home, and you're telling me you don't want to pay for an inspection. I mean, to me, that is your mortgage payment is $3,000 a month minimum, plus your insurance and your taxes and all this, and you're driving around you're usually driving around in a $60,000 vehicle, and you're telling me you want a free inspection. And I tell people, I said, look, if you want a free inspection, you're going to end up with a sales pitch. Do you want a real inspection, or do you want a sales pitch? And that's the bottom line. I mean, at the end of the day, the inspector's in there. He's going to sell you something because that's his job. I get it. But at the end of the day, if you're wanting just the inspection, and then the other one that tears me up is I get a contractor calling me and says, I don't really need you to perform the service. I just need the letter that you did it on a new construction. I mean, I get that in Miami. I don't know how corrupt the rest of the state is, but it kills me when you're supposed to be doing a foundation treatment before you pour that foundation, and they're asking me to get a certificate that says we did it without doing it because they don't want to pay for it. They want it for $100. I'm like, dude, that's insane. How many people are buying homes in Miami thinking they've got a termite treatment done in that home, and they didn't really get it? And
all of them, you know why? Because if it didn't get it, then the homeowner doesn't know that. They've got the 1-year warranty. Yep. And they've got that pretty sticker. They got that pretty sticker on their electric panel that says, so-and-so has treated this structure. Yeah. So it's, they're, to me, the way that builders will come at you like that is really the way that some agents will come at you. Yeah. I understand that's their job. They want to make it to closing so they can get paid. Right. And sometimes they're willing to sacrifice anything and everything to get there.
Yeah. We got it.
Sniff those out,
Yeah, we got it with house flippers down here. Wanting a certification on something that, that a termite job was done and the house they want termite free. And I tell the client, and my opinion is that if you're getting a home inspection done, the client should pay for it. And the client, because we're serving the client at the end of the day, who's going to buy that house? And
yes.
And a lot of the time the agent gets ticked off at us or at the industry because we're saying, no, I mean, there's termite and I have to report it. And they don't want it reported because that's gonna mess up their closing on the home. They're gonna lose the sale. And there's just
all the time, man.
Yeah, and that conflict of interest that the homeowner doesn't understand this, and I think we need to educate both the homeowner and the tech to be great for the client, because you said it, because we're at the end of the day we got to serve that client. They're buying, and most of the time it's their first home. They don't have any experience buying this. So yeah, I would recommend highly that if you're thinking of buying a home, I always did it. When I bought mine, I had, the roof inspection done. I had the 4-point inspection done. I had the termite inspection done, and I paid for it.
Sure.
So you walk away, by the time you're done, you're almost at $1,000 with all these inspections. But I'd rather walk away from a deal that I know is going to cost me $30,000 later, or somebody didn't disclose it, than to say I didn't spend $1,000 and did my due diligence, and then I'm stuck with all this, And then
That's right. Yeah. I'll get that call where someone might be price shopping for WDO inspection, or they may just be calling for advice.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's $100,000 house or if it's a $500,000 house. You should not be purchasing it without a proper WDO inspection.
Right.
It happens though. It happens all the time. Or
I get it all the time.
A lot of referrals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get referrals though. Thank God, I'll get referrals from, home inspectors that say, "Hey, look, I know that you didn't order a WDO, but you need to call Bryce. Let him come out here and give you an inspection because I found just a couple things that were very concerning to me, and you want a professional to look at it." So fortunately, I do get referrals that way. But, there's been plenty of times where I've lost that inspection. I've lost the opportunity to perform it because of the price. But I know what my investment is, for my time. And it doesn't end when you walk away from the house. You still have to compile your photo report. You have to type that report. There's a lot more to it once you walk away. So just because someone's charging you $150 and they're there for a couple of hours, they may have another hour of report writing to do. So it's just like the home inspection. They go hand in hand. It's the two most important things you can do prior to purchasing a house. Right.
No, absolutely. I think that, that's the other thing is, you don't know how much you got to write up and actually get it done. And sometimes it's $150. It barely covers the cost. I mean, at $150 for a termite inspector, to be there for 2 to 3 hours, to me, that's peanuts. I mean, I honestly, unless I was getting paid a commission, there's no way in the world you could get me to do that for you.
Sure.
It isn't going to happen. As a business person, I mean, I got to, at minimum, I got to at least take home $50 an hour for my expertise. I can't work for $15 an hour. We got licenses, we got the insurance, then you've got, all the things that the liability that comes with missing something. There's no way I'm putting my company at risk for $150 unless you've already signed a contract.
Sure. That's a common thing. That's a very common point that you made about companies that whether they perform, if they're licensed and certified to perform termite control, but they just don't go anywhere near the WDO inspection side of it. And there's plenty of companies that, they think that, okay, well, I can get in and do a WDO. I'll charge them $100 and then I'll make a sale off of it. And when I'm there, honest to God, I'll get upset if I don't find anything. My goal is to find something wrong with that house, not make a sale out of it. Right. I think that's why I've been successful at it. Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, I'm a troubleshooter by nature. Here's funny because I go into a home, I don't know termites, but I know what a termite damage looks like in a house. I know where to find, I can see the evidence there.
And I'll go in and I'm like, you got termites. And he said, I just bought the home. I said, did you do a termite inspection? And he says, no, we didn't do one. And I said, well, you got termites. That's what that, dropping is that you're seeing on that corner. He said, I've cleaned it up 3 times this week. And I said, well, you need to get a termite guy in here. And that's happening constantly where the customer's not even doing it. I said, now they're gonna, down here it's not too much of the, of a lot of the subterranean. I've never seen any of it, but drywood termite. And then, it's peanuts to tent it down here. I mean, $1,200 to $1,600, you can tent a home and it's done. And that's what everybody's going to do. There's very little localized treatment being done. I mean, somebody just, goes ahead and just tents it and that's it. And that's, it's almost peanuts to do it. I mean, I don't understand how you can tent a home for $1,600, but anyway, that's one thing that I've been fortunate enough to have on the job training with fumigation. But that's one certification that I do not have, and it's something that if I did have it, it would just be a personal, achievement thing, right.
Feel good type of thing.
Right. I wouldn't want it.
It's no line of work. No, it's no line of work that I would ever get into. But I do want the certification one day.
Yeah. No, I've been looking at doing maybe WDO to do WDO inspections. I wouldn't want to get into actual termite treatment or tenting. Just not
Sure.
my thing. I mean, down here, now we got the issue with, are we going to trench it? Are we going to bait it? Are we going to nuke it? What are we doing with it? And it doesn't, that work just doesn't appeal. For some reason, termites don't appeal to me. It does. I would have gotten the license already. I would have gotten a training ID, would have done it. And it just doesn't appeal to me. There's just so much, to me, down here in Miami, at least, maybe because I'm just biased by being down here in Miami, there's just so much rackets going on that you're trying to sell a quality service like that, and it would be almost impossible by talking to talking to the owners of the home that are going to buy it, and then talking to the real estate guys. My famous one is if you do this one for me really cheap, I guarantee you a lot of these are going to come down the road for you. Because I'm a realtor. And I'm like, it doesn't happen. I've been in sales for since I was 16, I started knocking on doors. That one is,
wow, good for you.
That one is so old, that I've heard it so many times that it isn't going to happen. But anyway, that's
termite is, talking about yourself going into termite. I mean, termite is, the most lucrative side of the pest control business, but it's also the most high risk.
Yeah.
You've got more companies get shut down or sued or, outright just put out of business because of termite claims than WDO claims.
Right.
It's a bigger liability than a truck on the road. So I understand you being apprehensive about it. And from what I've learned, talking with other inspectors across the state, is that the further south you go, the less value that the WDO has. Like here in North Florida, you can get close to a couple $100, and then you start going south and you keep going and going, and you're only getting $40.
Yeah. That's typical. I'm here, like people calling me constantly wanting it for free, free inspection, because the other company offered a free inspection. Do you do a free inspection? No. Yeah,
that's misleading. Also, you talked about homeowner education. Is that getting a free inspection is not necessarily always a WDO. They may be coming out simply to perform a termite estimate, right?
Right.
So if you're getting that inspection and you're requesting it for free and a company is willing to do that, I don't know why they would, but if they were, if they're not issuing a WDO report, then there's nothing you can do to hold them accountable.
Right. Okay. So a termite inspection and a WDO report are two different things then.
Yeah, to me it is, because I'm in the industry, right?
Right.
But to your homeowner, their realtor may say, hey, you need a termite inspection, and they don't know any better. They start calling around, and it's up to the company to get that out of them, over the phone. That when that initial contact is made, it's up to the company to determine, okay, are they wanting an estimate or are they needing a WDO report? So they are two different things. It's kind of like saying termite bond versus termite warranty.
You'll never get that verbiage. You'll never get that verbiage of termite bond out of people's heads, especially, your older demographics and your realtors. They love saying termite bond. It has to have a termite bond, termite bond. Well, it's not actually a termite bond anymore, but you tell them that, but they never change the wording on it.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Insurance. Well, it did used to be an actual bond, and the house would be bonded. But now it's the pest control company's insurance that provides that coverage.
Gotcha.
And that's how I try to explain it or pitch it in the simplest way possible, is that it's an insurance policy issued by my company that states that if you get termites and you have a damage policy with us, then we're going to cover the damage up to X amount of dollars, and we're going to treat it and we're going to make it right.
Right.
But you'll never get people to stop saying termite bond, just like you will never get them to stop saying termite inspection in lieu of WDO.
Right. So there's a difference between a termite inspection and a WDO, because you're covering the fungi, you're covering wood damage, you're covering the borer beetles, you're covering termites. And with the termite inspection, you're saying, I walked in, I did a visual inspection, and I poked a hole here with a screwdriver, and there was no live termite, or yes, there was a live termite, and you got termites.
Yeah.
So you need a tent.
Sure,
so you need
I'll do a free.
Yeah.
Right. Or if someone asked me, I would say, sure, I'll do a free termite inspection. And I come out and I do a quick inspection. I don't charge you for it, and I give you an estimate. But if it's a WDO, you can expect to pay, around a couple $100.
Right.
And you can expect me to be there for who knows how long, several hours probably. And you're going to get a report delivered with that. So there is a big difference, and homeowners need to be aware of that when they're calling around ordering these inspections.
Yeah. So you're wanting a free termite inspection. I'm buying this home. I want to know if it has termites. And the guy says, yeah, I think it has termites. You need a tent job, or you need a trenching job, or you need whatever it is that you're needing as a job. And here's the price. And then you walk away and you pretty much owe them nothing. They have nothing in their hand but an estimate that says, we think you got termites, but there's no report. And
that's right.
And you got nothing. So if the guy says, I doubt very sincerely that a termite guy is going to come out, do an inspection, and walk away without a contract saying, I did your free termite inspection and I didn't find anything. That's going to be a tough one, because you got to sell something when you're there. I mean, you can't just walk away. You got to sell something.
Sure. And that's how people are getting the what I call the 30-minute WDO.
Yeah. And it's not really a WDO that they're getting. They're not really getting that.
No.
They're getting an estimate that says they have termites and here's the estimate to do it. And, and of course that if you're a realtor, that's the last thing you want to hear your customer to hear, because now the customer can walk away if they hear that, but then also the customer is not really, he's not getting what he thinks he's getting. He's getting something else.
Totally misinformed, or, sometimes outright misled. And some companies are brave enough to send a salesman to do a WDO. The salesman will issue a termite estimate, and they will also issue a WDO report. And that's the crazy part to me.
Right. Yeah. How do you issue?
Because they know what they're going out there for. They know what they're going out there for. And they're oftentimes disgruntled because, oh man, I got to go do another WDO. It's 30 minutes from the office. I'm not making any money on it, but I'm going to pitch them 5 different services. So after they close, I can sandbag this one until next month and claim it, right? That's the whole goal, is to close the sale off of it. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's, and I've been in sales. I've been on both sides. I've been, on the commission side. I've been on the salary side. I prefer, for my salespeople, a lot of people will disagree with me completely on this. I'm a KPI guy, and I'd rather have a guy on salary, doing work, in sales, and pay him a good salary plus bonuses than straight commission only. Cause when you put a guy out on the street on sales commission, you're putting a lion out there and he's got a close or he doesn't eat. And
that's right.
And a lot of people are saying, they'll argue with me all day, say, yeah, but then he's not worth his salt. Any salesman worth his salt, is not going to be on salary. He's going to be on commission. I said, I totally disagree, because I used to sell $13 million a year on salary.
and I was the number one guy in the country. So, that is totally just a mentality that a lot of people have about our industry. And unfortunately, because a lot of people have that mentality, you have a lot of what we have in this industry that you don't have, with a lot of other industries that are home based. I mean, this is the only industry where you're not getting a tangible product. Everything else is tangible.
That's true.
I mean, think about it. You got a lawn guy. You can see the lawn was either cut right or it wasn't. The landscaping either looks right or it doesn't. That air conditioning unit either works right or it doesn't. Your refrigerator works right or it doesn't. How do you know pest control is working right, especially when it comes to termite? Especially if you're not doing an inspection every so often. How do you know that it's not getting eaten? When did that termite go in? And then people were like, I start getting the letters saying my house has termites because it's swarm season, and so how do you know without getting the inspection done, and the annual inspection or whatever that is the only way you really know, hey, you've got a problem. You can't wait 6 years. I know. When was the last time you had your house inspected for termites? Oh, 9 years ago or 5 years ago or 6 years, whatever.
Oh yeah. Ouch.
Yeah. And then so
way too long.
Yeah. So what do you recommend? Annual? Or biannual, what do you think is the best thing?
Number one, I recommend having a warranty, knowing what type of warranty you have, whether it covers termite damage or if it doesn't.
Right.
And then having annual inspections performed, whether it's a baiting system or a liquid treatment.
Right.
An interior and an exterior inspection, as well as a bait check if that's what you have. And, I'll be the first to say that some people can't afford that. But they're genuinely concerned about having termites, and they may be able to offer that person a liquid treatment with the option for renewal, and then they just simply don't renew. And my advice to that customer would be to get a termite estimate. Call a pest control company or termite control company, and have an estimate done annually or every other year. But the safest bet is to have a company to hold accountable. So that therefore you need a termite warranty of some sort on your property.
Right.
And never ever forego the interior inspection for a discount. If you have a termite warranty, the inside needs to be inspected just as much as the outside. Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, that's something I didn't know, that you can, get a discount for not checking the inside of the home.
Sure.
Yeah, because termites don't go inside; they only go outside. When they're swarming.
Well, different construction types.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
if you consider, even this is my philosophy. Yes, I'm a Centricon installer, but if it's a brick house, and let's say it's brick veneer, or even if it's real brick and it goes all the way below grade, and all you're doing annually is doing that bait check.
Yeah.
You're not going in, then how are you going to know?
Right.
If you don't go in, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're definitely not giving the customer what they're paying for.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. I need, it's about educating the end consumer, about educating the client, educating the technicians. I think it's a dual part of educating everybody, because there is so much marketing going on, but very little actual information is getting out to people. And that's one of the things that we've been focused on, is getting a good, I was just in a conference the other day where these guys are all pros in different areas of different fields in landscape, horticulture, pest control. And, they're saying, hey, man, there's so much bad information these days. The first 3 pages of Google are nothing but junk. And how does the person really know how to get educated and what, information they're reading? It's very tough. It is very tough in the age of information to actually get information. I tell people, Google Scholar, man. Forget about, you want to learn anything about pest control, look for the actual bug, go to Google Scholar and study your butt off. Because you're not going to get it on the first, 10 searches of Google. It's all marketing. So other than that,
Correct.
man, other than this, what we talked about, what else, what didn't I ask? What should anybody know, especially if you're a pest control guy, or you're an inspector or whatever, or you're, a realtor, a homeowner, anything they actually need to know that I didn't talk about?
I would say it's very important to understand the WDO report itself, from whether you're an inspector or an agent, like you said, or a consumer, there's a lot of print on that report that needs to be read even before, you read the damage section of the report or the evidence. There's a lot of disclaimers in that report that they're there to serve a purpose of educating the customer that, hey, the inspector's not required to move any furniture. If your home is furnished, he's not required to move anything. And then, most importantly, that WDO inspection is, it's a snapshot in time. You may go on Monday and everything looks great. There's not a shred of damage or evidence present. And then, Wednesday, there's a termite swarm. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So when you're there, you report what you see when you were there, and that's it. The other thing I'll tell other, WDO inspectors, in regards to report writing is stay away from adjectives and descriptors. So you never describe damage as minor or major, because my definition of minor is going to be different than an attorney's, right?
Gotcha.
So you don't give descriptors. You give zero descriptors. You simply say, what is the organism, what's damaged, and where's it at, and is it live, to keep your opinion out of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's very important. Yeah, because all of a sudden it's minor damage, and then tears a wall open, and I mean, because you're not looking behind walls either. I mean, you're not putting a borescope in during this inspection behind a wall to see if there's actual damage behind that wall. Even there might not be, any kick out holes or anything that's happening. How do you tell the person know if there's damage behind a wall? And especially, my home, I always get this. My home is a block home. What are the chances of me getting termite? And how do you
just as high as anyone else,
right?
You may have a block home which offers less of a food source, but your chances are still just equally as high.
Right.
So, in reference to looking behind walls, I think that's where a good inspector has good tools, right? So then you use a moisture meter. I have a FLIR infrared camera. I don't have the borescope. I never have used that. I've just kind of let the house talk to me.
Right.
And if I find a wall outside that's suspicious, maybe it's stucco, maybe it's bowing out, maybe it just doesn't look right, it's been patched and painted, then the first thing I'm going to do when I go inside is pull out my infrared and my meter and go straight to that wall, right? So the house talks to you, and then it's up to the inspector to have good tools and go above and beyond what the Florida baselines for performing WDO inspections tell you to do.
Right, because there is no requirement in the law that you have to use a FLIR camera, infrared camera, to diagnose.
No,
there isn't.
That's correct. If you go to the Department of Agriculture's website, you can research baselines for performing the 13645, and that sets the standard. It sets the bar very low for the procedures that companies are to follow, and then it's up to the company and their individual policies to go above and beyond that. That's why I carry the FLIR, right? They do recommend a moisture meter, but sometimes, there's nothing that'll speak to you like that picture from the infrared.
Right. Yeah, because you could be looking at water damage that has infiltrated, and now you have, the rotting behind there or whatever. Is that correct? What the assumption I'm making is, you got an infiltrate, and then you've got wood rot. And you got the fungal coming out of there, and nobody would have noticed that.
No, nobody would have known it. And so there's little tricks and ways to get inside the wall, to probe in there and maybe check that sheathing and see if it's decayed or not. But the house, typically when something like that's going on, the house is going to talk to you in one way or another. You're going to notice a repair or a patch, or especially a lot of homes on the market have fresh paint, so you got to always beware of fresh paint. And anytime a home is recently painted, that's going on the comment section of my WDO. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you're going to get a lot of that cosmetic stuff done, where we got a ton of house flippers coming in down here, and they're just
I'm sure.
Yeah, they're flipping these things and they're painting them and they're getting it. Wooden floors, and everything looks really, really neat. And then you're looking at that home, and I'm walking in, I'm like, oh man, there's a problem here. And the homeowner is not suspecting because they're looking at a turnkey item, which is really appealing. They don't want to do the repairs themselves. They're just thinking it's turnkey, everything is good. And it turns out it's not. And they just freshly painted and all that. So yeah, man, that's really valuable stuff. As far as, about you, I mean, you're in Jacksonville, right? So we're going to try to see.
That's right.
People who want to get a hold of you. Maybe there's a bunch of realtors, brokers. There's a homeowner. How do they get a hold of you?
You can call my office at 904-338-9847, and you can visit my website at www.ameripropest.com.
And what areas do you service?
I service Duval County and any county that touches us. So that's the Fernandina Beach, Nassau County, Jacksonville Beach, Ponte Vedra Beach, Clay County. It's the entire North Florida region.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. So that way, if somebody needs it, we're going to try to put this out. Hopefully it'll go out maybe tomorrow. We can get it out on the air, and then we'll hopefully get the YouTube video out too of the interview. We're trying some new stuff here, so on the podcast. So we're, that's going to be exciting, man. If you can get,
absolutely, glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's exciting to have you. We've chatted back and forth in some groups, and it's always fun to see you engage. And so that was pretty cool. So yeah, man, I loved having you. Thank you so much for the information, getting us up to date. And if there's anything you can add, just drop me some notes. If anything I need to put in there for you, I will. And get everything going. So thanks for being here, brother.
Sure. I'm glad to be here, man. I love the show.
All right, brother. Take care, man. Have a great one. We'll talk soon.
You too.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.